welcome to a new episode of Story of Success, in which we interview prominent Egyptian figures. We'll be back with our guest after the break, so stay with us. Our guest today is a prominent Egyptian figure who excelled in the field of languages and translation. He acquired 4 master's degrees in addition to his PhD degree from the Teachers College, right now the University of Columbia. In addition to that, he is a professor of languages and translation at the Faculty of Languages and Translation of Al-Azhar University. He has many publications, translations and papers. Today we'll learn more about the story of success of Professor Ahmed Shafiq.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, I'd like to know what got you interested in languages and translation, Doctor?
Well, actually, in my generation, we used to start studying English at the prep or the preparatory school. This is different from what is going on now, where students or pupils start learning English at the elementary school. Before I went to the prep school, my father and mother actually tried to teach me some English. I went to the first year prep school with probably a few thousand words, also some sentences, and also some rules on how to combine these into simple sentences. Actually, I liked the language very much, and this was a factor which contributed to my decision to join the Faculty of Languages and Translation, with which I am affiliated until now.
Doctor, would you tell us more about the definition of linguistics?
A very simple definition of linguistics is that it is the scientific study of language. Mm-hmm. We study language, and when we say language, we don't mean a particular language, although we can also study a particular language. But when we say the scientific study of language, we mean studying language as a human or as a social phenomenon. All right? And we usually make a distinction between what we call diachronic linguistics. Diachronic is another word for historical, and that's why sometimes we also refer to this branch of linguistics as historical linguistics. And the second branch is what we call synchronic linguistics, and another term for synchronic is descriptive. By diachronic linguistics, we mean we study language change, how languages or a particular language changes over time, over a relatively long period of time. But in the case of synchronic linguistics or descriptive linguistics, we are concerned with describing a certain language at a certain point in time. All right? We also have what we call general or theoretical linguistics, and this branch of linguistics is interested in examining all the common features among or between all languages of the world, and also interested in establishing rules for studying language as a human phenomenon. We have what we call comparative linguistics, when we want to compare two languages or two language families, pointing out the similarities between them, and on the other hand, this is also called sometimes typological linguistics, and on the other hand we have what we call contrastive linguistics, when you want to point out the differences between two languages or two language families. A very important branch of linguistics is what we call applied linguistics, and this is linguistics or using the findings of linguistics and applying them in two major fields: the field of foreign language teaching a language to speakers of another language, and also in the field of translation. We combine the discipline of linguistics with other branches of knowledge or other disciplines like psychology, where we have psycholinguistics, like sociology or the society in general, where we have sociolinguistics, or neurology, neurolinguistics, computational linguistics, where we do linguistic research by means of computer-assisted linguistic research, and so on and so forth.
Doctor, you graduated from the faculty with honors, and then you started your master's degree. You had 4 master's degrees. One of them was here in Egypt. So would you tell us about the thesis of your first master's, please?
The thesis of my first semester, it was the fad, so to speak, or it was in vogue, so to speak, what we call the transformational generative grammar by the well-known American linguist Noam Chomsky. And my MA thesis was on this. And by the way, it was the first MA thesis to be publicly defended at the college. The college was established in 1965, and I joined it only a few years in 1968. And it was the first. Before that, people used to write a mini thesis, what was called a mini thesis, and 1 or 2 professors, the supervisor or the academic advisor, would read it and would write a report accepting or declining it, or 2 professors would do this. But I was the first one to go to public defense in my MA thesis. Then it was in transformational generative grammar, and later I had to change my orientation and my interest in other branches of linguistics.
Doctor, you were awarded a scholarship to the United States, and actually before the interview you told me an interesting story about it. Would you tell us more about first the scholarship?
Actually, it was not okay. It was called the Peace Scholarships.
Yes.
And these were scholarships granted by AID, Agency for International Development, which is a branch or affiliated with the foreign ministry or the foreign state in the United States of America. After signing the peace treaty, well, I heard a story about the former American president, Jimmy Carter, celebrating signing the peace treaty in a ceremony or in a party at the American University in Cairo, during which he asked American ambassador, how can we celebrate in a useful way the signing of the peace treaty? The ambassador apparently asked the former President Jimmy Carter that if we assign or set aside the price of one aircraft, one military aircraft, one military plane, and send some Egyptian young scholars a good way to celebrate. Apparently, or as I heard the story, the ambassador, the former president, didn't really respond to the extent that the American ambassador thought that his idea didn't really appeal to the American president at the time. And then when President Carter went back home, to the amazement or the surprise of the ambassador, he received a letter allocating the price of a military aircraft to send some Egyptian students for 2 years to study in America. All right. 3,500 people at least, I heard a larger number of 5,000, applied for these scholarships, and they held an examination in the English language. Many people passed it, and many others didn't pass it. Of course, they had a shorter list of candidates. They held one interview, and they excluded some people, and they had to hold another interview and excluded other people until they had a short list including only 100 people. I was lucky enough to be among these 100 people, and I went to the States for a couple of years.
Doctor, now how do you feel scoring the highest score on that exam? Like when you heard that actually you were the highest score, and actually that you almost, I think according to what you were told, that actually you were given the full mark. How did you feel?
Well, actually, I felt happy about it, of course, and I felt that it was a series in my story of success, if I could say so. And I felt that if my father, well, my mother was still there. If my father had been there, he died when I was a freshman, and we'll come back to this later. He would have been very proud of me, because actually both of them taught me English, but the greater part was done by my father, who was taught by English people himself at school, although he received only governmental or only public education, but he knew English very well, and he was a very avid reader. And I felt that if he had lived until that day, he would have been very happy with me. But I felt satisfied and I felt fulfilled.
Doctor, then you traveled to the United States as part of this scholarship. But it's interesting that you acquired 3 master's degrees. Would you tell us about your experience in the United States and the master's degrees you've acquired?
Yes. Actually, I was chosen as a candidate by the AID, Agency for International Development, affiliated with the foreign state, the American foreign state, and they chose Teachers College, Columbia University for me. Actually, it was not my choice. I'm not a graduate of a faculty of education here, and although I was teaching for several years, but still I didn't have, well, I was simply acquiring experience in teaching day after day, but I didn't study education or didn't study methods of teaching and so on and so forth. Then when I went to Teachers College, I felt that this was a chance for me to complement what was missing in my career, and that's why I was keen on doing what they call an EDM, a Master of Education. The short word for it is EDM, but it's to spell it out, it's Master of Education, which I got from Teachers College. Okay, I also wanted to renew my knowledge about linguistics and to open up to the more recent developments in linguistics, and that's why I worked on an MA, and both were granted by the Teachers College. Well, after you finish all requirements, for your PhD or for your EDD, Doctor of Education degree, automatically you get what they call an MPhil, Master of Philosophy, and this was granted by a different school at the university called the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Then I had three masters, MA, EDM, MA, and MPhil from 2 different colleges affiliated with Columbia University, and you probably have pictures of these diplomas, which may show on the screen somehow.
We will be definitely showing them on the screen. Now, Doctor, during that time, what were the most memorable moments for you?
Well, a memorable moment is that I felt really bad when I knew that the general orientation, the general trend at Teachers College was against transformation and generative grammar, which was the subject matter of my MA thesis. And I thought that I'll not be in good hands and that I'll be ill-treated somehow. But luckily, my advisor, my first advisor who passed away, asked me if I had a copy of my MA thesis. I gave it to him, he read it, and I expected very negative remarks on his part, but to my surprise, he came back to me one day and said, this is a very good piece of academic work, and it cannot be any less than any thesis which was written at Teachers College in particular, or Columbia University in general, and therefore I advise you to register for a PhD. All right? I said I'm here only for 2 years, and apparently I came only to meet some professors, to take some courses, to buy some books and go back home to resume writing my PhD. And he said, please, Ahmed, who used to say Mr. Al-Khatib, and he had difficulty in pronouncing the sound, Kha. I pitied him whenever he tried to pronounce my full name, my last name. That's why I asked him several times to call me Ahmed, which was probably a little easier for him. And he said, after you finish the 2 years of your scholarship, I'm going to ask for a scholarship from Columbia University, from Teachers College, until you finish your PhD. All right?
So what about the PhD? Because these 2 years were for the masters. Did you extend your stay for the PhD? Were you granted another scholarship?
Well, actually, I went back home after these 2 years, waiting for the late Professor Robert Allen, to send it to me to go back to resume my study as he promised.
Yes.
The man died at this time. The man died, the man passed away.
That must have been a shock for you.
Yes, it was. Actually, it was. But I said, okay, I tried to condole or to console myself, sorry, by saying that, well, I met professors whom I saw their names, okay. I read them, but I met them in flesh and blood, yes, personally. I bought many books, I copied many books and articles. I lived the academic atmosphere, so to speak. Butler Library, the main library at Columbia University, had stories underground more than it had stories, above the ground, yes. And we had something like 30 libraries affiliated with the different colleges of Columbia University. And then I said, okay, I didn't really lose much. On the contrary, I benefited. All of a sudden, few people who were, in my case, people who went with an MA and simply were supposed to collect data for their PhDs at home, registered for or were encouraged by similar professors like the late Robert Allen to register for PhDs. And then we were only a handful of people who did this, and all of a sudden the missions department at the Ministry of Higher Education said that anyone who out of scratch like that in a jiffy, they said people who registered for a PhD and are willing to go back to the States to get a PhD, we are ready to finance them for until they finish. They asked me, how long do you want? And I said, well, 1 year.
1 year for a PhD?
I said 1 year. No, actually, I had met all requirements except the dissertation.
Yeah.
All right?
Yes.
Then, and that's why you get an MPhil after you meet all requirements except the dissertation. And I said only 1 year. All right? Thinking that I can finish my thesis in 1 year. And by the way, they call people who meet all requirements except the dissertation ABDs, all but dissertation, all except the dissertation. And we have hundreds or thousands of people who did this, including American citizens. All right? Then I went at the expense of the missions department, Ministry of Higher Education, for 1 year, during which I couldn't finish my thesis because my advisor used to travel a lot, and actually I needed another year. They gave me another year, but I finished 3 or 4 months before the end of the second year. I'm really grateful to the Ministry of Higher Education in Egypt, because The salary I got from Egypt was much more than the salary I got from AID. They would give me a stipend or give me some extra money for my wife who accompanied me there, and for my son who was born there. But AID said we don't encourage married students to come to accompany their families with them, and if you decide to do this, it's at your own expense. You will get the same salary, the same stipend we give to anyone who is not married to start with or who did not bring his family along. We really suffered a great deal with this tiny budget during the first 2 years, but the second 2 years, when I was financed by Egypt, we led a much more comfortable life.
Unfortunately, the time of the episode is up, but we will be continuing to talk more about your story of success, Doctor, in the next episode. But I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Emeritus Dr. Ahmed Shafiq Al-Khatib, for this interview. Well, we have seen together my interview with Professor Emeritus Dr. Ahmed Shafiq Al-Khatib, Professor of Linguistics and Translation at the English Department of the Faculty of Languages and Translation at Al-Azhar University. We've learned about his story of success, but still we have more to continue in the next episode of Story of Success. So till then, it's goodbye.